Hello. My name is Milica Tomic, and I will do some short introduction into my name and also my background. So I was born in the Socialistic Federative Republic of Yugoslavia. This is a country in southeastern Europe which was constituted during the Second World War in 1943, and which is quite important for also some works that I will show you later in the anti-fascistic struggle during the Revolutionary War. And today I live in the same, so I was born in 1960, and I'm born in Belgrade, and I still live in Belgrade, but my country, the name of my country is Serbia today. And in a country, which is a product of ethnic and racistic wars waged in the territory of former Yugoslavia, so the country that was constituted in the Second World War. And so during the racist war waged on the Balkans during the 90s, I'm now living just in Serbia. So there will be few works referring on this theme, and this is quite important for the works you will see. I'm sorry because of resolution of the images, but this is...
Io sono Milica Tomic, io sono italiana. Ja sam Milica Tomic, ja sam Češka.
This is the work that you can see here on the exhibition, and this work reflects the paradoxes of an act of making a statement, and this statement attached to the individual, to the ethnicity. At the same time, this work reveals the absolute and reveals the retroactive necessity of belonging to a fictional reality of an ethnic group. This also, how to say, reveals to an experience being born in a country which is multinational, and then wake up one morning in the country that you can recognize as just being an ethnically clean country. In these works, there are 64 languages, so I'm making this statement in 64 languages, stating different ethnical and national identities.
Ja Milica Tomic, ja Ukrajinka. Eu sou Milica Tomic, eu sou portuguesa. Ana Milica Tomic, Ana Lubnanija. Eu sunt Milica Tomic, eu sunt româncă. Eu soy Milica Tomic, eu soy cubana. Yo soy Milica Tomic, yo soy española. Ja sam Milica Tomic, ja sam Češka. A čom jaki Milica Tomic? Ganju Jimmy. Jo sok Milica Tomic.
So this work is also about the almost commonly accepted fact that linguistic experience governs our inner structure, and therefore to state or just to pronounce one's identity, it creates this and that, one's identity. The other work I would like to show you is the title of this work is XY Ungelöst, The Reconstruction of the Crime. And it is a title of a German contact TV show called Aktenzeichen XY ungelöst, which dealt with the reconstruction of the crimes. So the viewers were trying to solve the crimes through this TV contact show, and they were trying to help to solve this crime. So this work is very much about a crime and the personal responsibility of the artist, who is a citizen of a country enacting repression. So it is about erasing the memory, but it is also an attempt to save the memory of this crime. A private memory which avoids the traps of virtualization and mediatization. It is a self-analytical and introduce fellow artists who were invited to take part in this show, to take part in this video, the artists and the participants of the Serbian culture, and also to discuss about then one very particular crime that this work is reflecting on, and this is the killings of ethnic Albanians on Kosovo during the demonstration in 1998. So these colleagues and artists, they've been invited to take part in the show, but for the first time this video was shown, they just faced themselves in the position of the victims of those demonstrations. Because on the killing of those demonstrations, it was never announced in a public. So it was the first time that we discussed this and we were talking about this. So the series of slides under the title you will see now, but this is actually a serial of work calling Remembering, which I started in Erlauf. This is an Austrian city where two armies after the Second World War in 1945 met. And this was, so the two armies, the Soviet and the American, they met in Erlauf, and this was the end of the war. So I invited citizens of this small village, to take part in a work that I developed there. But I will show you the part of the work, and this is this serial called Remembering. That what you can see here, there are two bronze statues. One is American soldier, another one is a Soviet soldier, and in between that you can't see is an Austrian girl hugging both of them. But I took this place between those two armies as a political par excellence. What does it mean today, in 2000, 2001, in the 2000s, stepping between those two, in this political space par excellence? Was it the victory over fascism? Was it in this what was it then in 1945? What does it mean then? And what does it mean today? So I was inviting different people to step into this space, but when I was stepping there, I thought, how should I step there? So for me, the only possibilities to step there, to have some, let's say, emancipatory, let's say, politics, referring on emancipatory politics was for me, the only possibility was this anti-fascistic struggle during the Second World War, especially because at that time we still were in the wars and very complicated political situation. So this series of slides under title Remembering is dedicated actually to the rediscovering of the emancipating politics of socialism as well. So today's simplification of the history of socialism and the reduction of the entire corpus of socialist modernism to totalitarianism, English is quite complicated for me, sorry, erases and pushes into oblivion and emancipatory politics of socialism by reducing socialism to totalitarianism, annuls the politics of anti-colonialism and anti-fascism, gender equality, industrial democracy, and introduces instead politics which negate the outcome of the Second World War, anti-fascistic movement. In other words, in the former socialistic countries, ultra-racist gender politics are restored, reducing women and all her and the politics surrounding her into one not so well position. So what is especially worrying actually is that the women themselves had taken part in this, promoting politics which excluded them. By the works Erlof remembers and Belgrade remembers, I reminded to the emancipating potential of people liberation struggle by confronting it with today's politics of restoration, which redefined the outcome of the Second World War in Europe. So dressed like a member of the partisan movement here, I walk between these two armies, and walking between, because it was a performance, so between the two armies, that was for me an act of establishing continuity with the people's liberation struggle and anti-fascistic liberation movement in the territory of Yugoslavia during the Second World War. But through this is also the actualization of this politics and how does it function today in this circumstances. So it is also about the role of the woman during the Second World War in former Yugoslavia, where they equally took part, at least because there were 1 million of people who lost their life, but the half of them were women at that time. And they just took part in this struggle. So here I'm also dressed actually not as a real partisan woman, because I'm somebody who, but as an actress in the post-war movies that served as teaching tool about the history of a liberation struggle for my generation, showing actually our mediated relation to the Second World War. This one is also referring to the Second World War. So because in August in 1941, the Nazis hanged 5 members of the People Liberation Movement in the center of Belgrade, and 5 people were hanged in retribution for sabotage on the German army personnel. So their reenactment of this event was an act of establishing continuity with the People Liberation Movement, a movement that made radical act of rebellion when rebellion itself was not possible. So actually, I tried, this was a gaze. I tried to reconstruct the last, so the gaze of a dying patriot, member of the liberation movement, seen through the time loop, eye to eye, what we see today when this performance took place. So I was hanged there, and then this was the photo that we made from the eyes because this was the same place where this woman during the Second World War was hanged. And there is no monument, for example, for those people who were hanged in this moment. And this was very important for me because this was also referring on the local situation. On one hand, very local situation concerning Belgrade and Yugoslavia, but at the same time, as it was it was referring on the very global tendencies of the neo-fascism coming all over contemporary, let's say. this was one on the secession, one billboard called Milica Tomic and Rosel Hassan driving in the Porsche and thinking about overpopulation. Okay, so this is a work called Portrait of My Mother, and I made this work in '99, actually during, in the time, I started to do it in the time of the NATO bombing of Belgrade, and then I just wanted to, I didn't plan to do it in this moment, but somehow it came so. And so this is a slide and video installation, and it was an attempt to reconstruct, to analyze a very intimate conversation between my mother and me. So by subjectively filming with the subjective camera the way from my place to my mother's home in just in 64 minutes, but in just one sequence, and separating the unit of the tone and sound. She will speak about 3 important men of her life. These are 3 sequences.
Pa nismo se našli mi samo, u svakodnevnom životu. Jedno vreme je bilo toga izoletnosti, da smo čak i nešto zajedno radili sa nekim grupama. Ali nije bilo to proživanje duše. Nije bilo tako nužno. Ali nije to bio glavni razlog što je on želeo da ne bude sam. Jer je želeo da po onom stalinskom načinu, što možda on nije bio svestan toliko da to bude od početka nešto onako kako treba. Pa da to bude štetno, slobodno, bez deteta. Ta velika privrženost.
This is the third man, so third relation.
Ništa nije pitao, ništa nije istraživao, nego samo da je na ogromna ljubav i čekaj. Prisustvo i kako sve da ti učini sve. To je bio sve njegov oblik gospodarenja, to sam ja kasnije shvatila. Meni je to smetilo. Nije bilo, opet nije se desilo ta druženost kroz zajedno da smo jedan prema drugom, nego samo kod odnode greške ne. Kako misliš samo? Pa samo on je činio u sebi. On je bio taj koji živi za tebe. Pa ja sam naravno da sam mogla, ali nije se to
desilo. This intimate conversation between me and my mother speaks of the breakdown, a defeat of the modernist politics, and it attacks, reveals the neuralgic points of the newborn rightist female discourse, because my mother, she was an actress, living a very modern life, and then somehow she turned into very religious, I could say also rightist religious feminism, which is then. So I think I have a very little time, but I don't want to answer there, so I will just use to show one work more. Okay, I will be very fast. So these are 2 projections of 2 sides of the Serbian public and female and male representation. So one side is a female turbo folk star, which is a certain genre of music, and the other side are 3 anonymous men playing cards. And the stakes are high. So the men playing hard, they reflect the way in which the dominant power is reproduced on a micro-social level. All political, business, and social decisions are made in exactly the same way as during the game of cards between one guy's lawyer, other is a smuggled cigarette dealer, and the other is a landlord. So this male community is never represented in the public and media space. And on the other side, this female turbo folk star, she's never present in their community as a real person. She does not have the right to participate in the social, political, and economical life. She exists only in the media and in the public space. These two words never get in contact. Her song is entitled Alone, and the media-constructed female body is the man's construction, in which it is just a surface, a screen of their defense against reality outside their community. So this will be all for... I was too long, okay.